I want to put the pivot points in. Really, the pivot points that matter are just the knees and the elbows and the wrists for right now, because the heels are set, the hips are set, the shoulders are set. So I really don't need to change that. All I want to do is kind of find the halfway point between the hip and the elbow. So that's going to be right there. That's going to be right there. Get a little bit more, and I want to break this into thirds. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of use your instincts, decide where you want to put that. I'm going to make the upper arm the same length as the forearm, and then leave a little bit there for the hand. Something that really makes the human figure come alive is an S-curve. Here is from the Bronze Project, but you can see the spine in here. The spine kind of goes along the back of our body, the back of your torso, and there's a subtle S-curve to it. I'm going to make the belly come out a little bit. I'm going to force that around, and then right here, where the belly is and the rib cage is going to be, I'm going to force it back the other way. So I get this S right in there. Now your neck is a continuation of the spine, and our head sits right on top of that. So I'm going to go ahead and bend that back the other way. It's not quite part of the S. So I did cheat a little bit. I used pliers to force the spine a little bit together. I threw some more tape on there. I also used the pliers to put a small little bend up on top. You got a set, see if you can use them. If not, just do your best to keep that wire nice and tight. Now you can see that S-curve a little bit more to the spine and how my neck is curving back out. Okay, let's talk about what your figure's doing. How is it standing? In art, we use the word gesture quite a bit. Gesture really has to do with movement. Because you moved into that pose, you had to lift your arm up. You had to twist your torso just a little bit. So let's look really quick at the skeleton. I want to look at the pivot points. So I'm going to find elbows, wrists, shoulders, those hip joints, all that good stuff in there, and then connect everything up. So I'm going to connect up the shoulders and the hips. Connect the dots in here. So you kind of see through this, what is the stick figure inside of that piece doing? So that's kind of broken down. Even though this is just a stick figure, you can kind of get a sense that this figure is turning its head. There's a curvature of the spine. There's that S-curve in there. Bending one leg a little bit. The hips are turned just a little bit. The shoulders turned a little bit. Head's coming over here. Let's go over here to the side and find those same things. Okay, so there's that S curve. It's very apparent. Straight, straight, a little bit. That is pretty boring. There's an S curve, but this figure it's not quite standing at attention, but it's just standing there at rest. So we want our figure to actually be doing something. Okay, so you guys could ask someone to take a position for you and take shots from multiple sides. This particular one is from a website, Art Models. The website is Pose Tools. I'll put that up. I've put some instructions on the handout. You can buy one of these poses. You can also kind of take a quick look at some of these views so you can get a sense before you want to buy it. But again, you could just ask someone to pose for you. There's a really great resource for artists to be able to see models, especially sculptors, so that you can get a sense of what someone looks like from multiple views. So this is a really dramatic gesture. Someone looks like maybe reaching or pitching a ball. Notice how wide the feet are apart. You're going to want to keep that in mind. I gave you guys a pretty small block on purpose. I'd like you guys to try to find a pose where those feet are pretty close together. If you find the pivot points and basically do the stick figure inside, you can really get a sense of what that gesture is all about and how to then bend this piece to somehow communicate what that figure's doing. Some views are going to be much more helpful than others. There isn't quite a straight line, and there is kind of a really kind of nice, elegant, almost subtle S in there. Okay? And again, that takes some practice to find the spine. I'm kind of exaggerating it just a little bit. Okay, let's pick something that's a little bit less energetic. So I'm going to find these pivot points: shoulders, elbows, wrists. Okay, so here's this pose. I did it kind of quickly, so I'm looking to see how accurate I was. There's something that happens in the human figure called contrapposto. When you bend one leg slightly, which you can kind of see here, and the other one straight, your hips actually change. It's a little bit more obvious in here, how the hips are going one way. And contrapposto, it just means counter pose or opposite pose. And what that means is the hips and the shoulders, when you change your legs, they become opposite angles. I kind of changed that here. I can see from the pants, I maybe should have gone that way a little bit, and from here. So one angle and a slightly opposite angle. One angle and a slightly opposite angle. Because the leg that is straight is further away from the ground than the leg that is bent. And so the hips have to compensate and turn, and the shoulders need to go the opposite way. I've got this pose here. Let me try to bend this one a little bit to it. Because the contrapposto is so obvious in the back, I'm going to use that side. So these hips should be going up just a little bit. Pull that down. Pull that down. So now I've got this angle here, and that means those shoulders should go the other way. So I've got this one going this way, that one going that way. I've got the curve of the spine already. Let me bring that back just a little bit more. Straighten that up a bit. Let's see, which leg is bent? Let's see, this one is higher. So that means this is the bent leg. When your leg bends, it's going to come down a little bit more. So I'll go ahead and bend this one at the knee, bring it forward and down just a little bit. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with this as it is. Again, I'm not trying to get it perfect. This isn't a super representational figure. There is some abstraction here, but at least I do have that turn of the hips, angle of the shoulders, a little bit of an S curve. I've looked to see how close those feet are. And the knees, the ankles, the hips, everything's kind of in relation to itself. Okay. One other note, you want to make sure when you're bending arms that you keep these things fairly straight. Bones aren't made of rubber, so when you have a bend, it pivots like a door hinge. You just want to make that thing pivot. You don't want to put a big bend in there. So for now, nice straight line, and then there's the hand, and that's going to be the wrist right in there. You want to avoid turning this into just a big squiggly curve and turning it into a muffler man. Okay, so I've got my block, I've got some nails. I figured out where those two heels are going to go. Pretty happy with how that stands. I don't want to force it once it's in there. I want to have this kind of ready to go. I am going to drive these nails into here. One thing about driving nails, you don't want to do it right in the middle of a table. You want to find something really solid. Go right over the leg of a table if you have a work table, or better yet, find a cement floor and hammer right on top of that, because that's going to be solid, which is what I'm going to do. So I put the nails in there. On purpose, I wanted to kind of bend one and show you what would happen. Notice this knot right there. That's the strongest part of the wood. It's almost like trying to nail into stone. So make sure that you're not trying to nail into something really close. I stopped as soon as you notice that a nail is starting to bend, stop. If you have a claw hammer, instead of pliers, you can try bending that a little bit and getting that thing straight again. So now I'm ready to attach these two pieces together. And the nails are just there to give this thing a little bit more structure. Okay, so actually that is really strong. That's standing up pretty nicely. I could play around with it to make sure it's the posture that I want. Remember, in sculpture, you want to look in the round. You want to look from all sides, not just stare at one particular view. And it's helpful sometimes to look up above. Look at the figure's center of gravity, right? Is it leaning too far back? Does it look like that person, if that figure actually existed, could they stand up?